Okay, here I am at the northeast corner of the property and gonna start the farm tour here next to this old willow. And removing lots of Daphne laureola and poison hemlock here for years. It's mostly nettle coming up now. Here's the barbed wire fence. And then, of course, on the other side of the barbed wire fence is tons of the false laurel, all that Daphne crap. So, birds seem to like it though, they spread it. It's impossible to get rid of, but I can at least keep it out of certain areas. And then, got a nice Doug fir. You know, it's only, God, their things grew really fast the last century, so I'm not even gonna estimate its age, but probably less than 100 years old, I'm now deciding, you know. But still, here we are, blackberry jungle, recently carved path. So a lot of jungle bramble of wild rose and blackberry, but then we get to this huge old willow. And of course it just grows up and snaps and dies. But yeah, it probably goes, you know, 60 feet up, 50 feet up. And then we start getting into my most recent fun thing. I planted hickories and pecans and hickory pecans. Hybrids. And then here we are, it's all a lot of hawthorn, young shrubby growth, but I just planted 14 nut trees to give them all, you know, all the rest of everything a windbreak from the north, and also, you know, and the trees that are growing 100 feet tall, I didn't want to plant where it's all going to be disturbing my sunlight for other tender young things. But these should hopefully, you know, unless of course something's coming up from the root, be okay with these cages. Definitely plastic might have been cheaper than buying a roll. I didn't get more than 10 of these off one roll, but it's only a couple foot roll. But yeah, try to avoid plastic and always just recycle things, you know. So mostly I've just been recycling chicken wire, but I found that chicken wire was not the best tree cage. But so far, a lot of my plantings are apple. I'm grafting myself. I haven't gone to a nursery for a while. These hickory pecans came from a place called Future Forest Gardens over in Pennsylvania. And so yeah, just gonna try to keep them safe. Here we get into the like rose alder ecosystem. Pretty swampy down here. On some of the swampiest patches I planted pawpaws, and they were 2-year-old seedlings. So we'll see what happens. It's drying up pretty fast back here. Here, I don't know what this plant is. Flowers look like that from last year. Just sort of like, it's as far as brambles go, it's like pretty friendly, no thorns. Never seen oyster mushrooms back here, but I did bring some spores back here. Here's a bag I picked oyster mushrooms in last year. And some samberry, young samberry. One of the pawpaws I planted didn't have much of a nub, but I mean, I've decided the seedlings are near indestructible, so it's for sure gonna send something up. And yeah, the tap roots will do their magic while not much happens up above. I'm learning on a lot of things. Another pawpaw I planted. But anyway, these are like the second grade pawpaws. A lot of them were ones that lost their tops already, so there's about 24 pawpaws scattered about. And here we got this plum that fell down. Big old plum, already cracked in the center. It pretty much like 3 stemmed and then it all came down. But here's our little 3 cottonwood trees. That's the big one. And then, yeah, so there's some more pawpaws back around like the swampy area. You can see yeah, it's pretty moist. And here's kind of sunny and oh, cool spiral you can see there. Yeah, trees always spiral. Anyway, I'm checking to see on some mulberries that were suckers, and looks like so far so good, nothing ate them. And there's some elderberry back there and some other sort of volunteer seedling. Probably a stone fruit of some kind. I don't know, I haven't seen it flower yet. But I had to dig it up because it was too close to my pears. And here's a sucker of the rootstock my almonds grafted onto. And I planted about 14 just random pieces of rootstock because it was so prolific. I was thinking maybe I'll graft almonds down here later or something. But not yet. We're gonna do like maybe a spiral, like outer perimeter, and then yeah, bring it back into the garden areas. Yeah, a little ways away, it just turns into like an ecosystem of holly, ivy, laurel, false laurel, but trying to encourage lots of, Oregon grape, and there's a huckleberry, red elderberry. We're about to get into the little Saskatoon part of the jungle. Here we get my favorite little ecosystem where it's all just moss and licorice ferns. Lots of lichen. And yeah, this is what I like to call the permadynamic biocultural school of cascadian natural farming. To say, I gotta love all those guys with what they wrote about and talked about for so many years about getting the hand of man out of nature more and seeing what happens. Because then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we got a whole little forest of Saskatoon here. And all these medicinal plants everywhere. I mean, hawthorn, yeah, it's a nuisance to some and boon to others. So learning to work with nature, you can understand hawthorn has the medicinal values, being related to the rose plant. It has the, possibility of just being a mulch tree or good firewood. And it's a little guardian. Hawthorn, sacred to the fairies. I mean, so is holly, the ash, the oak. Ash and oak are a little friendlier, I guess. But sometimes you need those, protective plants. And here we get our friend, much friendlier than the holly, is the native Oregon grape. Guess you can caper the buds when they're pre-flowered. Back into the sort of dug fir corner in the property. Here, where we've been walking all along the west side, started in the northeast corner, now we're about halfway down the west side. Always fences, but the animals and the plants and the fungi, they don't care about fences. It is interesting though there's a lot of things over there, like on the neighbor's property. There's St. John's wort and a lot of Scotch broom. They have never crossed over. We share a lot of blackberries and trailing blackberries with them. Then once the forest starts getting dense enough over here, there ends up being some salal and a lot of Oregon grape. And even start to find back here a lot of squirrel planted and bird planted things. We start finding the naturalized hazelnut. We start finding a whole little apple grove incidentally this last year or two, and cut out some fir to help provide some light. And yeah, trees also don't care about fences, like, you know, just fall right over. There's a black cherry, or native cherry, I guess, wild cherry. Fence got taken out by a big willow. And yeah, this is a very, very dry and elevated part of the property comparatively to the wet swampland areas. So the wild cherry was not getting very big and dying a lot, so there's a lot of just branches everywhere. Boats on the neighbor's property, they got a horse field right over there, and we kind of tried to connect the stream system in the neighborhood a bit with tapping into a pond up there to tap into a newly, 10-year-old now pond. And oh, here, see some wild strawberry. But yeah, trying to capture and store water beyond just mulch and stuff. Also just, yeah, like figuring out the feng shui of the land. Where's the energy flowing? That's where my attention's going. And here is the first of the feral, or, you know, seedling bird sprouted apples. Slightly older one, started to get a little pruned up. It's really reaching for the light there. Haven't seen fruit yet. And then here's a feral plum, little red flesh, you know, probably more Asian variety of small, like cherry-like plum. And then a few more apples. I think there's a total of 6 or 7 in this little grove. But it's funny, being that there's a fir right here blocking their light right at the fence line, how far the apple branches are willing to go to find that sun. Now they can just hang out, maybe make some fruit now that we got sun. If not, there's some grafting stock. And yeah, I'm gonna take the easy way. And then, even though it is probably hugely energy efficient, you know, in terms of what Buckminster Fuller calls energy dollars, tapping into the wood stream or waste stream of the wood chips that arborists make has been a boon to my soil. Gone through 3 dump truck loads already this year, and probably 10 total now in the last 3-4 years. Dug this up and transplanted this apple tree last year, sort of winter keeper. Fruits, you know, gets finally sweet like January, if you can get it before the birds. It was too close to another tree. And same with this one. It's a nice, not a keeper, but a winter keeper, but, you know, a nice eating apple, and it was too close to something else, so I dug it up and moved it. And then I got 4 semi-dwarf planted last year, and then here is 5 dwarf I planted this year, and then there was a whole cluster of apples seedlings that I didn't think could have come from last year, because that was when I was dumping it for my sheep last year. But there was yeah, I think I ripped off some 13 rooted suckers or something off this one main branch. Probably been mowed over by the lawn a few times, so I'm gonna leave that, see what fruit comes out or graft onto it. Then got, you know, not my most vigorous walnut, but compared to this one, shows the difference like 2 feet of elevation and water table does, because they're both pretty close to the stream. And then we got thimbleberry cluster, planted some pawpaws on the other side of the stream recently, but just little seedlings, so we'll see. You know, they were 1-year-old seedlings, not 2-year-olds. Here's some hazelnut. Further back by the house, there's a giant colony of Italian plum. There's my peach tree, and there's also 2 small chestnuts. And my dog, Blue. Yep, cutest bare necessities pup ever. She knows it. And then we got another hawthorn. Here's black walnut, also seeing, of course, a little lower in the water table. And not hawthorn, this is walnut. Here's another walnut, and it really shows, you know, just differences, slight differences in soil and moisture content can do for tap-rooted things tapping in. This one's planted 1 year further behind, but it started getting branchier this year in a nice nettle patch. The pond dug in 2011. Only time a tractor's been here in the last 10 years was to dig this pond. Ginkgo biloba planted in the compacted soil too soon after the pond, but you know, now it's mulched for years and turning the super tractor compacted soil into some really nice fluffy loam. Fluffy loam. And then this year's most recent acquisition, at least on a larger scale, was these 23 blueberry plants, all given a nice mulch after being a blackberry patch. And here, yeah, here's the kind of more the southeast corner. We've made it around. Here's the whole eastern fence line. Neighbors have the stream, but you know, we connect. Yeah. And then blueberries, all free, dug out with a truck. Super easy. More labor was spent putting them in than taking them out, and giving some seaweed. Threw some biochar. Lots of alder chips. This should be awesome. And then here's trees that were planted, dug up from where they were planted, never given any attention. I start mulching them. Oh, now it's a nice grove. It just took, you know, 18 years. But mostly apple. It's 2 Italian prune. This is a pear dug up from an abandoned orchard, so it's just probably a sucker rootstock, and took 1 graft last year. That was the 1 graft it took, but it was really haggard from being dug up last year, you know. So got 2 pairs here, you know. Probably all total, I've planted close to, you know, over 100, you know, pear and apple trees here, and then there's another 4 or 5 peach and another dozen nuts, and or you know, besides the most recent hickory pecan things, and then there's all sorts of randoms. But this is pretty cool. This is an old abandoned grape, and I've cleaned out the wild roses from underneath it, found the original stalk. Probably gonna find all the places it rooted itself again and chop it up and trellis it. But yeah, there's just a couple hundred square feet all of this sprawling grape, and just like huge grapevine. Goes all along the fence. Made all the wild rose into charcoal. Did various things from throwing it raw as a weed suppressant and pond cleaner, you know, when the pond was getting algae, to inoculating it various ways, soaking it in liquids, or fermented some with dahlia tubers. All right, so we got plum, cherry, pear, russet apple. Don't know that apple, but it made good cider. Orchis pear, loquat behind it, persimmon next to it, transparent apple, quince, two other types of pear, old Gravenstein, two other old Gravensteins, small little pawpaw patch there, gooseberries, wood chip pile. There's my not enjoying the frost of the last week, but it's a Chilean guava. Hopefully it doesn't die like my last Chilean guava, but we're at like probably one of the coldest spots on Fidalgo Island besides the top Mount Erie. Then we got some honeyberries and peaches and mulberries and a luma and a kiwi that needs a male, some sort of fig, some more pawpaws and a kibia, blueberries that were planted in the wrong spot or could have been irrigated, sea berry, some American persimmon. Those are what do you call pineapple guava. I haven't seen them fruit. Might dig them up and bring them to my greenhouse now that I moved it off of concrete and onto soil. But here we're got the other pond. This one's dug closer to like the year 2000. Connects our rain gutter system. Kind of hugelkultur in progress. Just had all these rotting branches in a trench for years and wood chipped them, and garden in the center where it was all like blackberries growing 15 feet up in a band stump. This is where an old barn was that was just falling apart and totally collapsing on itself over the years, even before we got here. Now that was where my greenhouse was. Now we got 250 pawpaws and 50 something pears on the other side, or figs on the other side. Here's apples I grafted yesterday. These are all from a abandoned orchard I got the same pear rootstock from, and this is all different trees. I tried to, get genetics from like the 8 remaining old trees. And here's my soil. Some of these pots were 7 years no-till, and then some were like 5 years no-till because then I did sweet potatoes. But some of my best soil on the whole property. I think the plastic's leaching into it at this point of 7 years in the hot sun. But yeah, cut old IBC totes in half just because I'd gotten a deal. I got 10 for $50 each and got some rain barrels for free. Still got an IBC tote for water and one for fermentation. New greenhouse. This was blackberries 3 years ago. Now it is once again being used as probably an animal barn, is why there's the concrete foundation. So far it's just a lot of like nettle, turnip, radish, parsnip. Those were the mainstays that have kept going from once it started ripping out the blackberry roots. I do love parsnips. Oh, and I have some elephant garlic. I'm gonna plant some sweet potato and turmeric in here, among other things. But those are what's growing in the house right now. Find me some winter stuff, and this will probably be my little like fig garden. Try to plant some more varieties of fig than just Desert King, because we have a few varieties of Desert King. So here we're pretty much back where we started. The willows in the background, but I'm gonna do now kind of a little spiral. I did a big loop, and now I'm gonna do a spiral. So I just opened this path up. Cleared all this blackberries this winter. This is all blackberries behind the greenhouse. Greenhouse area was cleared, but everything from the stonework to where I'm standing was all just smashed down with branches, and then I kind of loppered things a little bit and then just try to kind of walk around all winter and keep smashing things down. And definitely had some rabbit and vole issues, so I'm not really concerned about their habitat at this point. There's back in the woods, the Hecon, I think, is right there actually, and then here's the feral rootstock from the old orchard. Here's some rain tree nursery rootstock, but our Bartlett pears that are all heirloom. Here's a pear branch that grafted onto a hawthorn. Hopefully it doesn't outgrow it. I'm going to cut off the rest. None of the other branches took grafts last year. And yeah, some of my little grafted pears that are 3 years old have gotten relentlessly chewed on. So, I try to protect them. I guess need taller protection as the years go on. Then this is my last piece of just original rootstock from 3 years old from rain tree, and I think that particular batch was infested with like a pseudomonas, because basically I had 5 surviving pieces of just rootstock out of a 30 batch, and that was the year they were being sold though, so it probably had nothing to do with them, you know, themselves. It's just probably something happened. Anyway, another piece of abandoned rootstock, super strong and stout and feral. I mean, that's the sort of genetics I want to work with. I did buy 80 pieces of rootstock from Raintree in 2018. Now I'm just propagating my own rootstocks. Here's a little sucker that was growing off a friend's pear tree. So there's, I don't know, 9 pears there, and then got 30 odd apples here, all Gravenstein. Next I'm probably gonna have like you know, the abandoned orchard block, and then I've also propagated some winter banana and some russets and stuff like that. Got another garden over here where another old shed was, just rotting and collapsing apart, and so I hauled a bunch of like shingles and stuff to the dump, all this old petroleum shingles, and now it's just kind of a flower garden because I wouldn't really want to eat much from here. But there's some peonies and some irises and a lot of parsnip coming up, and I think we planted the good dahlias, yeah, over yonder. And then another sort of stone fruit, you know, just squirter plum, as I've heard them called, small little freestone, you know, plum. Then this was from our pond creation, a little gravel patch, or not pond, a well drilled over 150 feet deep, and I was like, oh wait, hey, if I screen that, I can get gravel for the road and rock dust for myself. So I've been experimenting with using it as a basaltic rock dust for trace minerals, and there's our little well. Here's one of yesterday's projects. 12 apple trees in the ground, soon to get some cardboard around them and then wood chipped. These are all grafted off of varieties we'd had from the apples near the blueberries. Here's one of the first gardens I created back in 2011, and it's now mostly berries. There's raspberries here and a sort of loganberry and tayberry over there, and then I transplanted a bunch of wheat that was overwintering in my greenhouse, and the rabbits had a field day, so not much there, but some parsnip and some garlic and a lot of nettles. I mean, nettles growing in all my gardens at this point, and I love it. I eat so much nettle. My favorite recipe is probably nettle tacos. And then show last few things. I got some hazelnuts. Here's another sort of hugelkultur bed where I've been piling branch for years. Now I started cutting with like 2-year-old rotting wood chips, and there's another little veggie and medicinal herb garden. There's a lot of parsnip in it right now, but there's been other things, and also a bunch of flowers planted around by my mom. But yeah, bricks of mycelium in this 2-year-old wood chip compost. Just look at that. Just all mycelial. Just eating away. Got a huge pile of branches now to chomp through underneath and cover this with soil, but I'm gonna rip out this old fence next to that pear and probably tear down that old shed because it's just leaking, you know, rat haven. And then we got hazelnut, fig tree, giant fig tree on the left there, and then 3 types of apples. This is where I've been getting my rootstock. It's this prolific sucker, and these apples never did anything, taste terrible. All of a sudden I started giving like my fermented seaweed extract I was making, and doing things like you know, bringing in wood chips, and I did some like fire ash, rock dust sort of things too. But then all of a sudden they're just like bountiful trees. We're basically like 3 feet tall, you know, like who knows how old, like definitely older than 20-30 years. And then we got also hops growing up against there. But yeah, it's amazing what mulch can do for revitalizing landscape, especially because this is all, it goes from like clay to sand up here. Then here's a feral Hazelnut doesn't have the blight like its mother tree does over there. And then a nice feral plum. Or maybe it was planted by the old lady before us, but I never noticed it until some trees like this, cherries and willow, started falling down around it. And then one of my most recent creations, in true forest gardening fashion, here's my little ginseng patch I just started. And then of course, you know, there's more stuff around here, but basically, yep, that is the farm tour. I have to make another video for once I get to, you know, some more hands-on preparations and stuff, but just remember, mulch, minerals, and microbes equals magic.